What if we tell you that the issue of confrontation between artificial intelligence and the capabilities of an ordinary person is fictitious, and moreover, the very fear that artificial intelligence will displace and replace humans is meaningless and absurd? And what if we tell you that on the basis of what you are about to see, we can say with certainty that there can be no confrontation at all, since at the center of the question of the superiority of man over artificial intelligence are not so much scientific facts, but rather, we will not be afraid of this word, the magic essence of human nature unsolved for thousands of years. On one unremarkable December evening in 1799, the Lord Chancellor of Great Britain, Henry Brougham, traveling through Sweden, stops for the night in a small hotel to gain strength before his further trip to Norway. Tired of the cold, the Lord decides to rest and take a warm, relaxing bath. He casually throws his clothes on a chair and lies down in the warm water to relax his body. Closing his eyes and fighting a chill, glanced briefly at the bathroom and saw something that made his blood run cold and his breath hitch with fear. To understand the horror of what the Lord saw in his bathroom, it is necessary to mention that when he was a student in his city of Edinburgh in England, Henry Brougham loved to argue with his friend about life after death and the immortality of the soul. One day, the dispute goes so far that Henry enters into an agreement with a friend sealed in blood that the one who dies first will have to appear before the second at all costs to prove the existence of life after death. Over time, the Lord of course forgot about this dispute, until the mentioned evening in the Swedish hotel. So, looking around the bathroom, Henry Brougham sees that on a chair near the bathroom, where his clothes lay just a minute ago, sat his old friend, with whom the Lord was bound by a blood oath. Not remembering how he got out of the bathroom, Henry Brougham regained consciousness only when he was lying on the floor, recovering from what he had seen. Immediately after this incident, the British Chancellor will write the following lines in his journal. "There's no doubt that I fell asleep, and what I saw was only a dream, which I cannot doubt in any way." And this could be the end of the story. But soon, returning to his hometown of Edinburgh, Henry Brougham receives a letter from India, which says that his friend, whose silhouette he saw in the bathroom that fateful evening in a hotel in Sweden, died on December 19th, exactly the day when the Lord had a dream, after which he found himself on the floor of the bathroom. The story of Lord Brougham lifts the curtain behind one of the unsolved mysteries of man to this day, which baffles modern science. This secret is the immortality of human consciousness. And yes, here you will probably object. Wait, what does artificial intelligence or science have to do with it? And why do you tell these stories about immortality? And you'll be right. But in fact, having understood what human consciousness is, the answer to the following question will become obvious. Should people in general be afraid of artificial intelligence and its development? At the same time, if you believe that everything is clear to you on the issue of human consciousness, and scientific theories about human consciousness as a whole do not represent any conceptual uncertainty for you, then answer one simple question. Where exactly from the point of view of science and up to you does this very human consciousness reside? If you answer in neurons and their connections, then how is it that in the human brain throughout life, millions of molecules of new neurons and, as a result, neural connections are formed, but human consciousness remains continuous and practically unchanged until death? The average neuron, consisting of about 100,000 molecules, is about 80% water. The brain is home to about 100 billion such cells, and thus about 10 to 15 molecules. Each neuron gets 10,000 or so connections from other cells in the brain. Within each neuron, the molecules are replaced approximately 10,000 times in an average lifespan. Yet humans have a continuous sense of self that is stable over time. It must be said that, from the point of view of science, there is not a single other organ in the human body, besides the brain, that could lay claim to being the bearer of consciousness, and that would help a person to recognize oneself as a thinking being. Numerous stories, like the story of Lord Brougham, clearly show that the question of human consciousness is not such a clear and fully developed concept, since science rejects in it all what it cannot explain. But it is precisely the lack of understanding regarding the nature of human consciousness that is the source of fears and stereotypes that man, as a thinking being, is threatened by artificial intelligence with its developing power and abilities. In fact, there can be no confrontation between humans and artificial intelligence. And since science still does not have any adequate tools for studying the capabilities of consciousness, it is the hidden power contained in the human consciousness that puts an end to the dispute about the superiority of man over artificial intelligence and puts everything in its place, making the first the master and the second only tool. So, what is the secret of human consciousness? And why will man always remain infinitely superior to artificial intelligence in one's development? I asked, what will it take, short of having a near-death experience yourself, to convince you that it's real? Very nonchalantly, without batting an eye, the response was, even if I were to have a near-death experience myself, I would conclude that I was hallucinating, rather than believe that my mind can exist independently of my brain. Although science denies the immortality of human consciousness, because it does not have any reliable tools to verify this fact, science should not be blamed for its limited approach to studying this issue. After all, it is not science that is limited, but its research tools and methods. At the same time, human consciousness has no boundaries at all. You can check this right now, sitting in front of the screen and without getting up from your chair. Try to imagine our universe and embrace its boundaries with your thought. You will succeed without much difficulty. Meanwhile, science has never in official history been able to reach even the limits of the solar system. So why are we so inclined to place the laws of the particular and limited, which is traditional science, over the laws of the general and limitless, which is human consciousness? After all, if a person can fully perceive the nature of one's own consciousness, one will be able to correctly lead and manage the scientific process and everything that has been created by it, including artificial intelligence. From this perspective, no unforeseen situations, such as, for example, the uprising of machines or the takeover of all human functions by artificial intelligence, simply cannot happen. An individual who owns one's consciousness owns everything. Science says that the structure of the human brain, with its neurons and neural connections, and the structure of the silicon chips necessary for the operation of artificial intelligence, suggests a significant difference in the functioning of these two categories, and makes clear the lag of artificial intelligence in the perception and interpretation of the surrounding reality. It is comparatively easy to make computers exhibit adult-level performance on intelligence tests or playing checkers, and difficult or impossible to give them the skills of a 1-year-old when it comes to perception and mobility. Artificial intelligence is essentially an imitation of the processes occurring in the human mind. Artificial intelligence is trained by working with large volumes of information, finding patterns, and remembering them in order to, based on the obtained algorithms, predict with a certain degree of accuracy the development of these algorithms in the future. And it is the fact that a person has consciousness with its undisclosed immortal powers that determines the significant difference between a oneself and artificial intelligence. Human consciousness bestows an opportunity inexhaustible in its potential, which will always remain inaccessible to any artificial intelligence, no matter how perfect its work. It's about the ability to create. Yes, of course, you can say that artificial intelligence is also capable of creating and offering something new. Not really. Artificial intelligence, in the simplest approximation, uses old and known parts, swaps them and gets a new order, in which there is nothing fundamentally new. And here, you probably won't be surprised because this conclusion is obvious. But now we are talking about the fact that the significant difference between a person and artificial intelligence algorithms lies not so much in the comparison of human biology and the electronics of computer chips, but in the ability of a person to interact with the energy of nature and transform it, creating something new that has never been seen before. and was never invented and implemented by anyone at any time, much less by artificial intelligence. Described process in essence is the process of creation, the tool for converting the energy of nature into the energy of creativity is the human brain. Science is very unclear and vague on this matter. This is logical. After all, science is still not able to say with accuracy what energy is. Therefore, the energetic truths that lie at the core of human nature remain a mystery and speculation for science. But mystical philosophy is able to eliminate misunderstanding and ambiguity and reveal the secret of the energetic interaction between man and nature, speaking quite definitely about the functions of the human brain. The result of the higher activity of the mind engaged in scientific research is the evolution of a sublimated form of spiritual energy, which can achieve unlimited results in its cosmic action, while the brain, working automatically, retains or accumulates in itself only a certain amount of brute force, which will not generate any good either for the individual or for humanity. The human brain is an inexhaustible generator of the most refined cosmic force, which it produces from the low, crude energy of nature. The head of a person in a highly ecstatic state, when all the electricity of one's system is concentrated around the brain, shows during such periods, especially in the dark, a perfect likeness of the sun. Now, you probably have a thought about how, when talking about science, we switch to the terms energy and inexhaustible generator. This question is illogical, given that most likely you have never in your life considered your nature from the point of view of a thinking and perceiving being, as well as the nature of other people, using that part of physics that has not yet become generally accepted and publicly available and which is called metaphysics. The fact is that the deeper a person understands the processes in nature, the more clearly and realistically one realizes oneself as a part of it, perceiving the unmanifested and invisible interaction with nature on an equal basis with the manifested and visible, the more the true meaning of life is revealed to a person. After all, denying the fact that we do not directly perceive the huge hidden part of nature, but are clearly aware of only its visible part, is simply pointless. For example, the range of electromagnetic waves, of which only the optical spectrum, which constitutes only a small fraction of the entire range of electromagnetic waves, is accessible to direct human perception. You, of course, will say that it is quite possible to capture this imperceptible range of electromagnetic waves, and registering its presence is not difficult with the help of special instruments. But what if we told you that the instruments, so to speak, for recording the hidden and mystical part of nature, so far rejected by conventional science, are within you and they need to be developed? The most important such instruments are the human soul and the human spirit. In the process of development of materialistic science and its achievements and victories, especially in the 20th century, the concepts of soul and spirit completely disappeared from our everyday life. At the same time, the centuries of development of the dictatorship of theology and the church, which preceded the scientific boom, completely confused those few ordinary people who dared to understand the concepts of the soul and spirit of man. Meanwhile, even at the beginning of our era, clarity in understanding these deep concepts was so natural and common for any educated person that all everyday life and government affairs were based on a philosophy that explained the importance of the interaction of the soul and spirit in a person and their manifestation in ordinary life. I shall not commit the fashionable stupidity of regarding everything I cannot explain as a fraud. Man has a dark side, yes, and it's called stupidity. One of the philosophies that clearly explained the meaning of the soul and spirit of man was Gnosticism, which appeared in the Mediterranean in the 1st century AD. Gnosticism taught that man consists of 3 parts: body, soul, and spirit. What a person personified oneself with in one's consciousness determined the depth of one's understanding of nature and accordingly built the harmony of one's life. According to Gnosticism, the spirit is the divine and immortal essence of man, which collects experience by incarnating into physical bodies in a series of numerous earthly lives. The followers of Gnosticism we're sure that a person has not one, but many lives, which one lives one after another. The soul, being the connecting link between the spirit and the physical body, is capable of accumulating life experience, which it transfers to the spirit at the moment of a person's physical death. This is how the spirit moves along the path of divine evolution and reveals its divine power. Here you ask, what are all these concepts and how does this relate to artificial intelligence? The fact is that with the development of the soul, which is based on the rational activity of a person and one's revealed feelings, the creative ability develops in a person. In essence, the meaning of creativity is the process of embodying intangible and invisible ideas that a person captures with one's feelings, the fibers of one's soul, and the implementation of these ideas with the help of a developed human mind. What is this if not magic, when the intangible and invisible in the form of an idea, thanks to man, is embodied in the physical world and becomes tangible and visible in the form of some benefit for all humanity? This is precisely where one of the greatest mysteries and secrets of human nature lies, namely, the human soul is capable of creating. When they say soulless, take it as this person is not capable of creating and cannot bring anything new and useful into this world. Artificial intelligence is a soulless mechanism that cannot even compare to the greatness and mystery of human nature. Man is a creator. Artificial intelligence is a tool in the hands of a creator. Therefore, the fears and pains that are prophesied and associated with the development of artificial intelligence and which allegedly threaten humans are fiction and do not pose any real danger. No one and nothing can replace a person and the power of one's creativity. The main difference between the work of artificial intelligence and human consciousness does not lie in the plane of biology or even conventional physics. It is found in metaphysics. A person possessing a soul is able to create, exploring new horizons and turning deserts into forests, gardens, and oases. Artificial intelligence is capable of counting, calculating, drawing, but not creating. At the same time, in order for a person to learn to create, it is necessary to develop the soul, or in ordinary language, to develop one's mind and reveal one's feelings. Man is immortal by nature since one's thoughts and feelings are limitless and immortal. There is not a single force or thing on earth that can equal the immortal power of the creative individual. It is creativity that makes a person unattainable and irreplaceable by anything, even artificial intelligence.